This program is presented by Birch Gold Group, the precious metal IRA specialists.
Good morning, a night full of drama, not lacking surprises. We have projected outcomes from highly contested U.S. Senate races across the nation.
Will Republicans be able to pick up the 5 seats needed to gain a majority in the House? They're currently projected to gain 4. We take a look at what's known so far about the balance of power in Congress.
Big wins for Governors Ron DeSantis in Florida and Greg Abbott in Texas, while Governor Kathy Hochul holds off Lee Zeldin in New York. We have the rundown of the latest results.
Voting machines outages in the 2022 elections. Multiple counties reporting significant technical problems. Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning. I'm Evelyn Lee. Today is Wednesday, November 9th. It's the morning after, so we have a lot going on. So we're coming to you with a 1-hour program today instead of half an hour with special coverage of the midterm elections. So stay tuned here for the latest results from some battleground states. And we'll also be taking a look at the balance of power in Congress.
Yes, and this year there were 35 seats at stake in the Senate, all 435 seats in the House, and 36 governor seats.
That's right. Results are still coming in, but here's what we know right now. First, let's look at the outcomes from some of the most highly anticipated Senate races, the races seen as the most likely to flip and impact which party controls the chamber. Throughout the counting process, the balance of seats was tied from 39 all the way up to 48. As of now, Democrats control 48 seats, picking up 1. Republicans have taken a slight lead and are currently sitting at 49. Starting off with the most clear-cut among the projected winners in the Granite State, that New Hampshire's incumbent Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan wins re-election. She beat her challenger Don Bolduc with close to 54% of the vote. Bolduc got around 44%. He has conceded. That's with around 72% of the votes counted. Republicans saw Hassan as one of the most vulnerable Democrats in the Senate seeking re-election. Her win could in part be attributed to her willingness to step outside party lines. She recently criticized the Biden administration in debate with Bolduc for its policies on the border and a hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan. In Ohio, Trump-endorsed Republican J.D. Vance beats Democrat Tim Ryan. The race has been called by both Decision Desk and the Associated Press. Vance came in with over 53% of the vote, Ryan with close to 47%. That's with around 83% of the precincts reporting. The race was tightly contested for several months. Vance was able to gain momentum after 2 debates with Ryan in October. The candidates were vying for a seat left open by retiring Republican Senator Rob Portman. Ryan reportedly called Vance to concede. And going to Arizona, the incumbent Democratic Senator Mark Kelly has a big lead over his Republican challenger, Blake Masters. Kelly currently has just over 52% of the vote. Masters has around 45%. Right now, only about 70% of the ballots have been counted, so this is still a bit too early to call, but as of now, it's looking like Kelly will hold on to his seat. Masters picked up a late endorsement from the former Libertarian candidate Mark Victor. He dropped out of the race about a week before the election. Victor's name was still on the ballot and soaked up around 2% of the vote. In North Carolina, Republican Ted Budd defeats his Democrat opponent Cherry Beasley. Budd has just over 50% of the vote. Beasley has around 47%, and that's with 95% of the votes counted in North Carolina.
Next, let's look at a few of the critical U.S. Senate races that have yet to be called: Wisconsin and Nevada. Democrats were hoping to flip the Wisconsin seat held by incumbent Republican Ron Johnson. This one is really close. Right now, Johnson has a little over 50% of the vote. Democrat Mandela Barnes has just over 49%. An estimated 91% of the votes have been counted. In Nevada, it looks like incumbent Senator Catherine Cortez Mastro might be losing her job. Trump-backed challenger Adam Laxalt has taken the lead with just over 49% of the vote. Cortez Masto has now just over 47%. Around 86% of the ballots have been counted so far. So stay tuned to find out what happens. This outcome could change. So the big question many are wondering is which party will control the Senate when the dust settles? Let's take a look at the map to get an idea of how this is playing out. Of the 35 seats up for grabs, Republicans are projected to have secured 19 so far. Democrats took 13. 3 are still undecided. Projected results show Republicans controlling 49 seats. Democrats are sitting at 48 seats. They have gained 1 in Pennsylvania. More on that race in Pennsylvania coming up.
Right, but first, let's take a look at some important races for governor. Several high-profile candidates were on the ballot, from Governor Ron DeSantis to Governor Greg Abbott. In Florida, Ron DeSantis cruised to an easy victory, defeating opponent Charlie Crist by a nearly 20% margin, 59% to 40%. DeSantis even managed to turn Miami-Dade County red. That's a feat that hadn't been accomplished in 20 years when Florida Governor Jeb Bush secured the county. We have highlighted some other results here as well. In Georgia, Brian Kemp was victorious over Stacey Abrams by a nearly 8-point margin, 53% to 45%. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, Democrat Josh Shapiro defeated Republican Doug Mastriano in a consequential open race for governor. The current margin is 55% to 43%. In Maine, incumbent Democrat Governor Janet Mills cruised to a smooth win over Republican Paul LePage, 55% to 42%. Let's take a look at Michigan as well. Gretchen Whitmer held on to defeat Tudor Dixon, 54% to 45%. And in Wisconsin, incumbent Democrat Governor Tony Evers won against Republican Tim Michels, 51% to 48%. Meanwhile, over in Texas, Republican Governor Greg Abbott defeated Beto O'Rourke by a double-digit margin, 55% to 43%.
Now we take a look at the races for governor out west, where Kari Lake is facing off against Katie Hobbs. That race and several others are still too early to call. In New Mexico, Democratic incumbent Michelle Lujan Grisham has defeated Republican Mark Ronchetti by a margin of 52% to 46%. Libertarian candidate Karen Bedoni was also on the ballot, coming in at just under 3%. Over in Kansas, Governor Laura Kelly, a Democrat, beat Republican Derek Schmidt by just 1.5%. Kelly had been considered one of the most endangered governors in the party. The Oregon race for governor is still too close to call. Democrat Tina Kotek holds a razor-thin edge over Christine Drazan in early results, leading by just 1%. Out in Arizona, Democrat Katie Hobbs is currently leading political newcomer Kari Lake by just 2 percentage points. That's with just over 40% of the votes counted. Any dispute of election results could take an unpleasant turn, as Katie Hobbs has refused to recuse herself as elections chief. Her office is tasked with canvassing and certifying the results that each county submits. Meanwhile, in Nevada, Republican Joe Lombardo leads Democrat Steve Sisolak by about 5 points, with about 85% of the vote in. Of the 36 governors up for election, the Republicans have taken 16 states and Democrats 16 states. There are still 4 states waiting for the final results. Kari Lake is locked in a tough battle with Katie Hobbs out in Arizona. Meanwhile, Tina Kotek and Christine Drazan are neck and neck in Oregon. Republican Mike Dunleavy has a strong 20-point lead in Alaska, and Joe Lombardo is up 5 points in Nevada.
And let's change gears here for a moment. Let's have a look at the balance of power in the House of Representatives. 218 seats are needed for a majority. As of this morning, Democrats control 179 of the 435 House seats. Republicans now have 197. Democrats lost 4 seats. Republicans need to pick up 5 to reach a majority. 56 districts have not finished counting yet.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump celebrated Tuesday the apparent success of some of the candidates he supported in the midterm elections.
As of this moment, and we have some out there, we are 80 wins and 3 losses. Is that good? Wouldn't that be funny if we were better on the general election than the nominations themselves? So that's great. Now in North Carolina, just out, Ted Budd is now leading. Doing great. He's leading 51-47. In Missouri, very good guy, Eric Schmidt is now up 55-43. In Ohio, J.D. Vance is now leading 52-47.
And now we want to bring in Terry Schilling. He is the president of the American Principles Project. Let's see if he joins us here. There we go. Good morning, Terry. Thanks for joining us after such
thanks so much for
night.
having me. I'm excited to be here.
Right, and an eventful night. What have you been watching this election? How did those results turn out?
Well, there were obviously a lot of mixed results here. Disappointed about the results in Michigan and obviously Pennsylvania, but we still have great opportunities in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Those three races are obviously going to be determining the control of the U.S. Senate. I think, though, out of all the winners last night, there was one person that really stood above and beyond everyone else, and that was Ron DeSantis. He was someone that won his 2018 governor's race by less than half of a percentage point. But after his leadership over the last 4 years during COVID, I mean, the really tough times, he ends up winning by over 20%. It's a big deal. I think that Ron DeSantis is showing conservatives and Republicans the way in how to win elections.
And one thing that I found really interesting that I want to know about, now Republicans were running on issues like parental rights and education. I actually spoke to the senior advisor of Parents Know Best, and she believed that education was a big issue that could potentially shape this election. What have you been seeing there with, of course, now Republicans not performing as strong as expected?
Well, one of the most important factors in campaigns and elections is actually getting the candidates themselves to go on offense. There's a lot of different activists out there and political organizations for the family, like my organization, American Principles Project, but it really is up to the candidates to determine the agenda of the campaign. And what we saw this election was the vast majority of time on the campaign trail and in the press and on campaign ads was spent on combating the Joe Biden economy, combating the Joe Biden record on crime. There were more candidates this year than I've ever seen who wanted and tried to make their Democrat opponent pay a price for their extremism when it comes to parental rights and our kids' education and their innocence. But it wasn't enough in a lot of cases. We really need to make this put this at the forefront. And I think Ron DeSantis, again, is the example here. There's no one in the country that championed the family or parental rights or protecting our kids' innocence as bigly as Ron DeSantis has. And so he really stands out with his 20-point victory because there's no question that families and children were at the center of his campaign. And by the way, we also replaced a lot of anti-family Republicans with good Republicans, like J.D. Vance in Ohio and also Ted Budd in North Carolina.
That's interesting. Just to double check if I understand you correctly, do you think it was somehow of a miscalculation to focus on or not focus on education and parental rights that much? And where are you headed there?
What I'm really concerned about right now is Nevada and Arizona. Obviously, there were some problems yesterday with the ballot machines in Maricopa County, but those two states right there are going to determine if we get to 51 or 52 seats. I think Laxalt, I'm very bullish on him. Arizona is a little bit more complicated. I still am bullish on Blake Masters, but at the end of the day, I think that we could pull these two races out in very tight fashion.
And how do you think, zooming out now, the outcome of the election will shape the second half of Biden's presidency?
Yeah, no, I think that for the most part, there's going to be a big shakeup when it comes to national leadership. If I would be very nervous right now about my future in the Republican Party if I'm Mitch McConnell, if I'm Kevin McCarthy, even if I'm Donald Trump, I would be reassessing things to figure out what's going on and why the American people are going this way. They're looking for leadership right now, right? And that's what they want. They want someone that's going to protect their families, protect their jobs, and save their country. They feel like they're losing it. And ultimately, I don't think that Republicans have been presenting a very compelling compelling message to the American people. Voters want someone that's going to tell them what they're going to do when they're in office, like Ron DeSantis did. And I think that a lot of Republican candidates fell short this cycle. So we've got to reassess, and we really have to focus on being leaders and being bold and giving that vision to the American people.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Terry Schilling, for talking to us about this. Nice talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Democrat John Fetterman is projected to win the race for Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate seat. Republican Mehmet Oz has around 48% of the vote. Fetterman has almost 50%. That's with around 93% of the votes counted. The seat is opening up because Republican Senator Pat Toomey is retiring after 2 terms. Oz was confident of a win last night when he spoke to supporters. Here's what Oz and Fetterman had to say.
I am so proud of all of you. I thank you for your bravery, your commitment, your passion to helping make our country even stronger, even better. God bless you all. Give yourselves a hand. When all the ballots are counted, we believe we will win this race. We wanted to bring balance to Washington, which is exactly what we're going to do. As a heart surgeon, I spend my life focused on big problems. In my case, broken hearts. And we address them, we repair them, we heal them by uniting people together, not dividing them. It's exactly what we're going to do in Washington, right? That's what we need.
I've spent these last 2 decades fighting for the forgotten communities, because no community deserves to be left behind. No one deserves to be abandoned, and every place matters. We bet on the people of Pennsylvania, and you didn't let us down. And my promise to all of you is I will never let you down. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much.
Now, Georgia's U.S. Senate race is one of the most closely watched in the nation. Incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is in a tight race with Republican challenger Herschel Walker. The contest is yet to be called. Right now, Warnock is leading with just over 49%. Walker with over 48%, around 95% of the votes have been counted. Now, based on Georgia's election rules, if neither candidate gets over 50% of the vote, it will head to a runoff election. If that's needed, we can expect that on December 6th. Both Warnock and Walker thanked their supporters last night and asked them to hang in there. Have a listen.
So y'all just hang in there. I'm feeling good. I do. I feel good. We know how much is at stake in this election. So thank you for being with me, and I'm grateful that we are together every step of the way. And if you can hang in here for just a little while longer.
Just hang in there a little bit longer, because something good, it takes a while for it to get better. And it's going to get better. So I wanted to thank you guys for hanging in. And if some of you have to go home, you can wake up tomorrow morning and see that the new senator for the great state of Georgia is Herschel Walker.
Taking a quick look at Texas next, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has won a 3rd term there. Abbott has backed conservative policies, including opposing COVID-19 vaccine and mask mandates. He also signed the most restrictive abortion ban of any U.S. state and has bused thousands of illegal immigrants to Democratic-controlled parts of the United States since April.
Speaking of law enforcement, we've got to fully fund our law enforcement officers and give them the respect they deserve. We need to end these easy bail policies that allow dangerous criminals out onto the streets. And we must escalate our battle against the deadly fentanyl that is pouring across our border. We must treat it like the crime that it is, and that is murder. And I've jumpstart that process by declaring that the Mexican drug cartels are terrorist organizations, and we are going after them. We must never forget, our schools are for education, not for indoctrination. Schools must stop pushing political agendas and get back to teaching the fundamentals of math and science and reading. But more important than all of that, our students need to be taught why and how the United States of America began with literally nothing and went on to become the best country in the history of the entire world. That is what they need to be taught.
Senator Marco Rubio and Governor Ron DeSantis have won their respective races in Florida. Rubio came in at over 56% to his Democrat opponent Val Demings' roughly 42%. DeSantis secured a dominant victory over Democrat Charlie Crist. He beat Crist by a nearly 20-point margin, 59 to 40%. That was the widest margin in a Florida gubernatorial race since Jeb Bush won by nearly 13 points in 2002. His re-election to a second term bolsters his rise as a prominent GOP star with potential White House ambitions. He framed his candidacy as a battle against what he characterizes as the woke agenda of liberals. American thought leader Jan Jekielek has more from Florida.
Now, we're still tallying the votes, but it's clearly apparent that this election we will have garnered a significant number of votes from people who may not have voted for me 4 years ago. And I just want to let you know I am honored to have earned your trust and your support over these 4 years. We have embraced freedom. We have maintained law and order. We have protected the rights of parents. We have respected our taxpayers, and we reject woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die. While our country flounders due to failed leadership in Washington, Florida is on the right track. I believe the survival of the American experiment requires a revival of true American principles. Florida has proved that it can be done. We offer a ray of hope that better days still lie ahead. Now, thanks to the overwhelming support of the people of Florida, we not only won election, we have rewritten the political map. Thank you for honoring us with a win for the ages.
So I'm here with Helen Ferre, the executive director of the Republican Party of Florida. And she is a proud Hispanic, and we're going to talk about the Hispanic vote. I think that's what we need to talk about here.
Well, the Hispanic vote definitely was significant in flipping Miami-Dade County, which is the largest county in Florida. We have seen that Miami-Dade County, for the first time in decades, has voted red, and that's a direct result of Governor Ron DeSantis. Why do Hispanics like and support Governor DeSantis? Because they have lived through socialism and will not relive that story again. Governor DeSantis has been a fierce defender of individual liberties, and the wokeism that the left has brought to our country is totally unacceptable. Governor DeSantis, without being Hispanic, has really reached out and spoken to the Hispanic community in a way that raises enthusiasm. The difference between this election and other elections is that you are voting enthusiastically for a leader. Governor DeSantis has redefined Republican leadership, and that makes all the difference in the world.
And, one thing that the governor has been very strong on, frankly, the Florida legislature has been very strong on, is, basically putting parents first in education, hence the Parental Rights in Education bill. Now, where do Hispanics land on this? It's a bit of a loaded question, but tell me.
Hispanics are 100% in favor of family and being the ones who have that universal right that's been always accepted, that they should have the final decision on what is best for their kids. How can government come in and say government knows what's best for your kids? That's absolutely preposterous. They didn't give birth to them. They aren't the ones who take care of them every day. Teachers unions like Charlie Crist's running mate think that they're the ones who are in charge of children, that the children are theirs. We're the ones who are reminding them that as parents, we are responsible for our kids. No one's going to love them more than we, and no one's going to fight for them more than we. And that's why we have had a landslide election in Florida.
Well, Helen Perry, it's such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with Epoch Times.
Still to come, more on the election results from Arizona and Nevada. Our reporters on the ground bring us the details. And what happened to the red wave many were predicting? We have analysis from former California gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder after the break.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
This is Stephen K. Bannon. I urge you to protect your savings from inflation by diversifying into a physical gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Simply text the word NTD to 989898 and you'll get a free info kit on gold IRAs explaining everything.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Good to have you back. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer won a second four-year term in yesterday's election, defeating Republican challenger Tudor Dixon. The race in the battleground state centered on abortion access. This after the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade. Whitmer filed multiple lawsuits in state courts to block a 1931 law banning abortion from taking effect. With over 80% of the votes in, Whitmer was up around 9 points, 54 to 45%.
I am so happy to be here with all of you and my family and my partner in governance and all the phenomenal Michiganders who worked so hard to make sure that our voices were heard, to make sure that we set our state on the course that is focused on the future, that is focused on solving problems, not demonizing others.
Nevada's U.S. Senate race was close throughout early polls. Most polls had the candidates tied at 47%. Late in the race, GOP challenger Adam Laxalt gained on his Democrat opponent, incumbent Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. Cortez Masto's seat was seen as one of the most likely to flip for Republicans. Early vote counts had the incumbent leading and looking like she might win. Laxalt has now taken the lead with around 86% of the votes in. The Trump-endorsed candidate is currently sitting just under 50%. Senator Cortez Masto has just over 47%. Here's NTD's David Lamb on the technicalities of the race.
John, so how long do you think we'll be staying here until the election results come out?
Well, it could be quite a while, Dave, because the Nevada has a rule where they will not release results until all 17 counties have gotten their results and have had them compiled. And what we've been hearing is people were waiting online when the polls closed at 7 o'clock. And if you are online, they allow you to vote. So there are still people voting in Washoe County, which is the second largest county where Reno is, and other precincts here in Las Vegas, where 70% of the people live in Clark County. So, there were people still voting at 7:30, 7:40. So we might not be getting results, at least first batches of results, till maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock PST.
Now, the race for governor in Nevada has yet to be called. Republican Joe Lombardo currently leads Democrat Steve Sisolak by 5 points, with 86% of the vote counted. It's Lombardo at 50% and Sisolak at 45%.
And keep your fingers crossed, keep supporting, keep saying your prayers.
and we're going to be successful, and then we're all going to get back together again and have a real party, all right? So every one of you, please thank each other for all the work you've done in this campaign, for myself, Adam Laxalt, and everybody else on the ticket. Everybody else on the ticket, because we've worked hard, because we want to ensure that we put our state back on the right track. Because we can all agree we're going in the wrong direction.
We spoke with Nevada voters on Election Day to hear their sentiments. Here are some of the thoughts and concerns they expressed.
Well, I'm a little bit suspicious of the entire voting process as it stands right now, but I voted. The advent of computer-controlled voting opened the door to computer-controlled cheating.
I feel pretty good. I would like pretty much for everybody that's already in office stay in office so that we can continue to progress and do well for the state.
The Republicans are actually trying to connect with the minority population and to better understand their values and actually co-align with them.
Concerned with the issues like the economy, the border, the violence.
After falling behind early, Kari Lake has made a strong surge back in the race for the governor's chair in Arizona. Her opponent, Katie Hobbs, is clinging to a lead which is now under 2 points. She was previously up by 12 points.
We're standing outside of the Chandler Unified School District today. As you can see behind me, there's a pretty long line. People saying they're waiting for about an hour, but they want to get out and vote in person today because they are concerned about their vote counting and election integrity. Some of the voters we talked to said that they wanted to see what the process was inside to make sure there wasn't any shenanigans going on. What brought you out to Chandler to vote in person today?
Yeah, it's the only way I like to vote. I don't really trust. I have trust issues with the voting system since the last presidential election.
And did you experience any voting irregularities while you were in there?
Everything was pretty orderly, and the people that were working the booths and everything were quite knowledgeable and helpful.
What brought you out to do in-person voting today?
I don't know. I've always done in-person voting. It just feels normal. Yeah, I don't know. I guess. I don't know. There's something about actually writing it down that feels good for me.
I needed to vote in person to feel a little more secure about the voting process and confirm the integrity of this election, because I'm suspect of some ballots that were being mailed out to Maricopa voters that were federal-only ballots that were incorrect because we have inaccurate voter rolls.
What is the most important issues to you guys voting in Arizona?
To me, the border. To me, there's nothing more important than the border, than people being able to come in illegitimately and not go through the correct process. Don't mind people coming in. We don't mind new citizens, but having people come in that are unchecked is a big security concern, I think, to everybody.
We're taking a moment to go over to our host in the LA studio. Siama Karami speaks with a political analyst about progress in the Arizona governor's race.
We are here in our California studio. We're watching the West Coast races here. And today in the studio, I have Craig Kashishian, who's a pollster and political analyst who did polling for President Reagan. Great to have you, Craig.
Thank you, Siamak, for inviting me tonight.
Are you surprised by the result of Arizona race so far?
I am very surprised. I thought both races would be a lot more competitive to this point in time than they are as we speak. Now, we must say that there is some dysfunction in the polling, in the voting procedures in Arizona today, which may have queered the results to date. But nonetheless, I thought that Kari Lake and Blake Masters were truly robust candidates. And so far, from what I've seen, they're underperforming.
And Katie Hobbs is actually a Secretary of the State for Arizona, so some of the election she's under Katie's supervision, right?
That's true. She is indeed. But Katie Hobbs, I thought, made a strategic mistake. She didn't want to debate her opponent, and That doesn't benefit the citizens of Arizona when both candidates are not debating in a very crucial election with issues so temperamental as they are today. So I thought Katie Hobbs did the voters of Arizona a massive disservice. That should have really counted against her. As fate would have it, I'm both a trial attorney by training and also a pollster and political analyst. I see litigation here in action for quite the while. And I can understand why. I mean, what I just heard was quite disturbing. The fact that voting machines, after the irregularities of 2020, Arizona should have had its voting system mastered by now, so there wouldn't be any controversy. Instead, there is massive controversy as we speak. The vote seems to be frozen at, 51 or 52% as we speak. That is not a healthy result at this time, and it's certainly not fair to the citizens of Arizona.
Now, do you think these results would get a lot closer as we get to see the full result of the race?
Of course they will. But nonetheless, a 16-point gap at this point in time is still substantial. It takes a lot of heavy lifting for that bridge to be mounted.
Historically, the party of a first-term president loses ground during midterm elections. This, along with other factors, had many pollsters and analysts predicting a red wave or even a tsunami. Right now, the GOP has picked up a few seats in the House, and the Senate is still a toss-up. Cindy Drukier from NTD's The Nation Speaks got some analysis from Larry Elder, the host of The Larry Elder Show. He says the expected red wave did not materialize.
Look, I'm flabbergasted. It seems to me 40-year inflation, crime through the roof in many cities. Philadelphia is setting records for homicides, soft on crime Democrats, at least 2 million people illegally in this country because of the borders. It seems to me that it was all teed up, all lined up, a perfect storm for Republicans to do really well. So I'm very, very surprised. I just think the polls have become increasingly unreliable. I don't think people trust them. I think people don't tell them the truth. And I think it's hard to poll people when people are on cell phones. So I just think increasingly they're unreliable. I look at the betting parlors, and the betting parlors over in Great Britain had the Republicans taking the House, and they had them taking the Senate, but they also had them taking the House and the Senate, again, by odds that apparently are not going to come to fruition. So everybody got it wrong. I also think one other thing happened. In the last few days, the numbers came out for jobs, and they were about 250,000 jobs created, and also the GDP grew by 2.6%. So I think people were feeling a little bit better about the economy, and that is the issue that most people say is their #1 concern.
Coming up, officials in several states say their voting machines were down or not working properly on Election Day. We'll have that story after the break.
Communism is evil. Oh, come on. Listen, if you're as tired of the censorship as I am, I've actually got good news for you. Check out EpicTV.com. It's a brand new censorship-free video platform where you can find not only my show, but other deep documentaries, great programs, and honest movies that bring you the news without all the spin and the fake narratives. So, I'll see you there.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore ShenYunCreations.com.
Welcome back. Officials in several states say their voting machines were down or not working properly on Election Day. One of those locations was in Maricopa County in Arizona.
Some of the ballots that after people have voted them, they try and run them through the tabulator and they're not going through. If you can't put the ballot in the tabulator, then you can simply place it here in where you see the number 3, and this is a secure box where those ballots will be kept.
So this would function much like early voting functions, in that we would get your ballot back. Once we've signature verified it, we would send it to our central tabulators. ballots that are in here will already be, in effect, signature verified, so we won't need to confirm identity, but we will central tabulate them. This is actually what the majority of Arizona counties do on Election Day all the time.
Republican officials filed a lawsuit to have voting times extended in Maricopa County. The lawsuit was denied by a county judge. In Mercer County, New Jersey, all of the voting machines county-wide were not working. The West Windsor Township Clerk, Gay Huber, attributed the issue to a county-wide system outage. Huber says voters were still able to vote on a standard ballot at polling locations. In Harris County, Texas, at the Metropolitan Multi-Service Center, only 10 out of 50 voting machines were functioning. The same county saw another location with computer problems, leaving only 2 voting machines in working condition. Indianapolis also experienced glitches with their voting machines. U.S. Cybersecurity Chief Jen Easterly warned before the elections that errors and glitches were likely to occur. She described such occurrences as normal and nothing to be considered nefarious. She says it happens during every election, and there are multiple layers of security built into the system.
As voters came to vote in the traditionally Republican Maricopa County in Arizona, a poll worker informed them that there was a problem. The voting location had 2 vote tabulators. One was broken, and the other was only reading 75% of the votes correctly.
Of course, I know everybody wants to make sure that it reads and everything is fine.
Can you repeat that?
I can promise
Can you start from the beginning and repeat that?
So what happens is we have 2 tabulators. One of the tabulators is not working, okay? The other tabulator is taking about 75% successful. So 25% of them are being misread, and it could be a printer issue, or it could be the tabulator itself. So when it's misread, you have an option to put it into what's called box 3, and it gets read, whether it goes downtown and gets read manually, or whether it gets refed into our tabulator.
We don't want to adjudicate.
They get read.
No.
Okay? So no one's trying to deceive anybody.
Of course not. Not on election day. That would never happen, right? No, that would never happen.
So choices are, you guys.
Question.
Sure.
If I get up there and that happens to my ballot, can I take my ballot with me and go somewhere else?
Not leave premises with the ballot. Sorry, and there's not
because I don't trust it going to box. The box may never make
no way.
The choice is,
I'll come back.
The choice is to wait until.
Democratic New York Governor Kathy Hochul and Senate Leader Chuck Schumer celebrated on election night as preliminary results gave them an edge over their Republican challengers. Hochul currently leads Zeldin 53 to 47%, with 85% of the votes counted. Hochul went against Lee Zeldin, a congressman from Long Island, and Schumer faced off with Republican Joe Pinion. Hochul succeeded Andrew Cuomo after his resignation and was seeking a full term as governor. Chuck Schumer just won his 5th re-election to the U.S. Senate since 1999. New York's Attorney General Letitia James also celebrated her re-election on the same stage as Hochul and Schumer.
The glass ceiling, like the one that's above us here today, has finally been shattered in the state of New York, and you made it happen.
I am so proud and so honored that the people of New York have given me another term to keep doing what I love, fighting to deliver real results for New York in the U.S. Senate.
We sent a message, a shot across the bow, to the most powerful companies and people who believe that they're above the law, that they are not, and that this Attorney General will hold them accountable.
Democratic Representative Tim Ryan conceded the Ohio U.S. Senate race to Republican J.D. Vance. Trump-endorsed Vance came in with over 53% of the vote. Ryan has close to 47%. That's with an estimated 83% of the votes counted. Ryan told supporters it was a privilege to concede.
I have a privilege right now, a privilege, as someone who was the Democratic nominee. I have the privilege to concede this race to J.D. Vance, because the way this country operates is that when you lose an election, you concede, and you respect you respect the will of the people.
To the people of Ohio, I want to say something. I know, of course, we won a very good victory, and I'm very proud of it. Because of all of you, we won a great victory. But I want to say everything to whether you voted for me or not, if you're watching on TV, whether you voted for me or not, the thing that I promise to do is go to the United States Senate and fight every single day for the people of Ohio. Thanks to you, we get an opportunity to do just that.
Edison Research projects that Republicans have flipped 4 Democratic seats in the U.S. House, one fewer than they would need to capture a majority. But that number could change as 100 of the 435 House races have yet to be called, including some with vulnerable Republican incumbents. Dozens of Latino Charros, Spanish for cowboys, rode to the ballot box on horseback yesterday in Phoenix, Arizona. The ride was organized by Poder Latinx, a nonprofit that aims to galvanize Latino voters in battleground states. The convoy was held in a predominantly Latino part of Phoenix. The route was about 3.5 miles long. It went from a rodeo in a suburb to a church next to a ballot drop-off location. That's where members of the convoy who had not yet voted dropped off their ballots.
I think now is one of the Latino voters has been talked about as being one of the most important votes, one of the growing demographics around the country, and I think this is one of the opportunities that we have with our community in organizing them and bringing them out to an event and just showing a little bit of our heritage, but also making sure that our voices are heard as Latinos.
This is a celebration of our democracy, and we were motivating, encouraging, empowering our community to come out and vote today on Election Day for those that hadn't voted.
Oh, wow. Riding from a rodeo to the ballot box on horseback. What an interesting way to vote. Kind of brings back images of yesteryear.
Right. We'll be following up with the election results as they come in. Of course, we have NTD News Today coming up at 12 p.m. Eastern with the next set of updates here with Kevin Hogan. But that's all for our program here now. NTD Good Morning. If you have anything you want us to know, write us at goodmorning@ntd.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.